So I wanted to share with the Soul Fam just a quick observation of my altar area. I'm getting ready to open my heart in a talk on my channel about kind of my dirty little secret and how I came to a moment that I think some people may call enlightenment. It's a weird word. I think it was more like me just finding my own path and feeling like I was worthy and deserving of love and respect just as I am now. And so are you. So I'm going to sit down here in a moment and get in a cool headspace so that I can share a very intimate story about my process, kind of dealing with my environment and some of the things that tend to be kept secret. I don't feel like I need to because I'm not a criminal and I'm innocent and ain't got nothing. Nobody got nothing on me, nobody can tell me nothing. This is my shell. I filled it with some water that's a little blue from my watercolors, and it has lavender and hyacinth because all these things remind me of my grandmother, my nana. It's very feminine energy. My nana picked all these sand dollars off the beach. My nana understood the true meaning of affluence and love. So I'm sharing these wonderful little shells with you. These are sand dollars. This is money, and it's all of ours. My grandmother shared the love. She believed in sharing. Sharing is caring. She believed in this ancient tradition of shells are really money and love. And look at that symbol. What does that look like? It looks like a pot leaf, right? It looks like ain't nothing but a G thing, baby. If you watch that video, you know what I'm talking about. Just check out Snoop Dogg's necklace, and I'll tell you a story about that necklace and my Nana and what that necklace really means to me. Peace. What's up, my soul friends? So I had this moment where I felt like my heart was opening, and I was telling myself a story in my head about the changes that I've made and what some people refer to as something like an enlightenment. I just considered getting on my soul path, and I'll tell you how it happened for me. Just tell a little story. So it goes super far back into some very early childhood trauma that was sexual in nature, and I was so young that it's like hard to even remember. I was probably like 3 years old, and it was another child, and it was an infliction of some type of abuse that had trickled through my family, and my family didn't know what to do with this problem, and it took me forever to figure this thing out, what had happened, because it threw me for a loop. All right. And that loop was that I started to feel like I was a bad kid because I liked being bad, and I didn't understand this adult behavior. So I grew up fast as a result. Like, I was always trying to feel right, and to me, feeling right meant being bad. So, um, like, quick story into my sort of like adolescence is that I got into smoking super young. Like, I was smoking like we would like roll up dry grass in paper when we were like 5 years old and smoke that. Like, that's how much we were just like trying to do bad, trying to do wrong right as kids, like cursing like sailors, just being bad kids, And I was a sweet and loving child at the same time. So this is like a very like this was like my dark secret, right? Was that I liked to curse, and I thought that sexual energy was like this bad thing that felt good, and I was confused, okay, because I was a good, innocent, and sweet and loving little child, like very imaginative, creative, affectionate, loving with animals, very intelligent, okay, a good kid, but in a bad environment. And so, like, I started getting into smoking or whatever, and I got into smoking herb because smoking herb is like a very popular pastime in Northern California. The whole 420 thing, all that, it's like cultural history in where my stomping grounds are on a deep level. So that was there for me as a bad thing to do right. And that's the way I always felt about it. It was one of these weird things through the war on drugs that it sort of seeped through as like an herb that had medicinal properties that people were aware of. Okay. But, you know, my mom was very frustrated by all this because I just remember, like, I feel like the first time I ever got in trouble, I was on like a school trip on the American River doing river rafting and adventures in the old capital. And I had actually convinced this guy to sell me a pipe, like one of those old school little pot smoking devices that was made out of a bunch of little metal pieces that you could screw together, like before they were even really blowing glass like that. So I convinced this guy because I was that cool of a kid. Like, I had a whole story about why it was important to me. But when I got back home, I was in trouble because my parents had found something in my room, and it was like a stash and a pipe and some stuff that I'd made. And my mom was really upset, but my mom would always just ask me, like, why do you feel like you need to do this? But like, my mom couldn't really talk to me about those things, or I didn't feel comfortable talking to my mom about those things. So I just kept everything this dirty secret of mine. I didn't feel like a bad kid, but I felt like I was in trouble with my mom. I felt like I was, you know, there was a point at that time where they had cops come to my school with a bunch of drugs to show us what they looked like. I don't know what the hell's going on. I remember looking at this swag though. It was like some straight Bammer weed, and I was just like, dude, where's the purple at? And then I remember the cop afterwards, like, talking to the teachers or something and being like, yeah, it's pretty obvious, like, who's been exposed and who hasn't been. So, you know, it was obvious that this was part of my cultural inheritance. And it was obvious that I was going to have to live, like, underground and on the run if I was going to live that kind of lifestyle. So, like, through high school and on, I went through this world. I went through the world where I don't have any plants actually growing right now, even though I do plant seeds in my garden because I'm protected under state law and it's a medicinal herb and I stay in compliance. And I have a deep spiritual connection with this plant, as I'm going to go into with you how this is kind of a part of this experience to be on my path. Because this whole game and dance that I was doing, running away, trying to be an outlaw, trying to grow up too fast, that was all very harmful for me. And I lived and made out of harm and things that you experience, we learn deeply. And trust me, I've learned a lot because I've been through a lot. I learned a lot. I've done a lot. I've gone all the way up through this thing. I've done every aspect of it. I was going to say that I had a plant at all, like I had plants growing at all times since I was like 16, 17, always. Plants were always growing under my watch. Like, I always made sure that there were plants being cultivated at all times. And it just grows and grows. It goes indoor, outdoor, greenhouse. It grows, it grows, it grows. It goes, like, in compliance. We try to operate in compliance of state laws because we have state laws protecting us. In California, now I do in New York, most of the country, there's a shift in consciousness. I believe that changes are coming. I feel safe talking about this stuff right now. Okay? I haven't committed any crimes. I haven't hurt anyone ever in my life. So I'm innocent. This is just part of my growing up in this world, in this country, on this platform. I should be free, you know, to talk about my experience in life safely. So growing up, I went through all this, and I did a lot of different things. I worked as a teacher. I worked with the youth because it helped me to feel okay, like that I'm not a bad person because I'm a good person. Okay, I do good things. I cultivate a good plant. This is medicine. If people are having abusive relationships, then that's not my problem, okay? And you could abuse anything in life, essentially. So, you know, I keep it square, that I'm just a gardener, we're just farmers, and we're just doing the good work, you know, providing people with good medicine. That's the mission. So we go through this. I say we because there's a lot of people involved, and they're all good people, all in compliance, and I'm not naming any names, like, no matter what. So just be cool. This is part of our culture and part of our economy, to be honest with you. So respect it. Respect what's been done, the cottage industry and all of it, please. So, because it's crumbled around us. This thing is done. oh, like put a fork in it, done. The whole thing about this being what it was in places like the Emerald Triangle, that's like a bygone era, okay? And that's okay, because it's okay to let things like impermanence, just let things move on. We have to protect our right to be able to grow our own medicine. This is important to me. I believe it's a fundamental human right, and that prohibition has been extremely harmful for our world, the world. This war on drugs thing goes way deeper than you could ever imagine. I could tell you the whole story because I've studied it deeply. The second opium war and what happened in China is devastating to all the whole world over. Ain't nothing good that came from that war. No war, ever. Okay? So boom, boom, boom. I get lifted off this. Let's get back into the peace talk. So I go through my life and I'm teaching. I'm a student. I eventually get into working more along the lines with plants in terms of habitat restoration, forest ecology. I just am passionate. I'm passionate about nature. I'm passionate about my relationship to it as I am one with it. I believe I'm an extension of the crust of the earth. The Pacific Ocean is my bloodlines, and the redwood trees are my arms and legs and the whole core of my body. I'm trees, I'm water, I'm soil. I know soil like the back of my hand. I formulate soil. I got to the point where I was selling soils on a national scale, like doing big work. And I'll just keep it a secret because it didn't all work out so well, because I wasn't on my path. You know, I was trying to force something to work that wasn't working. Prohibition's not a good thing. I just shouldn't have been involved with like anything around that, to be honest, but I did, and I grew up with an experience that I could share with the whole community of people behind me, because I got a lot of people behind me on this. We're a lot of good people involved. Loving, caring, nonviolent people. So protect us at all costs and protect my story, because what had happened was I'd made myself sick. I got myself doing like too much work. This isn't like an easy job. Being a farmer is incredibly difficult. When you put this whole other parameter on it of these, like working with compliance and codes and everything else, it becomes extremely toxic and stressful, let alone the environmental conditions. Like, it's dirty, there's pests, there's problems. It's a never-ending, like, working to try, especially in this world, if you're trying to recreate nature like indoors or something like that, it comes with a whole network of problems. Okay, it's not a good solution that we're forced to go indoors because we can't have it out in the natural sunlight. So that's the direction that I've decided to go back into. But all of this is going to go into this toppling of myself. My entire ego got crushed. And this is how, because I wasn't on my path. I got myself feeling sick. I was drinking a lot. I just have drinking beer since I was the same age. Like, for me, alcohol and drinking beer made me feel like I could be a social creature, because I was so devastated by all this abuse that I was locked up like a cage inside my own heart. And when I would drink alcohol, I'd get numb, and the sweet, kind, innocent, loving person would bubble up inside me. And, you know, then it would eventually get to the point where it's stumbling over words or getting into trouble with, like, hurting myself in ways I was never harmful to anyone else. I just wasn't mean. I wasn't like that. I was, but, you know, it did cause dysfunction in my relationship, where not like I was all like being a drunk, complete abuser, but that I was sick. I'd get in arguments, feeling sick, and a cycle of sickness. I got myself in such bad shape that I was trying to find people to help me, like, to work with. So I have to protect some of the situations involved in this story. And I'm going to cut this little part out because I needed help with this whole thing. I couldn't find it. So I reached out and I got some help, and then with somebody I really care about. But this whole thing was so dysfunctional that I'm watching all this, like, not going well. Like, really, like, felt like I was losing my sanity and becoming a very miserable person. So I'm just going back into it. It ain't like this no more, but this is the way it was. And a series of events crippled my life. And it was that some dear friends of ours moved out of this area, which my family was incredibly close to this family. We don't have a lot of friends out here, and it's just like some of our dearest and deepest relationships we may have ever formed and his family left, and it was devastating for me and my partner. Then the dog that my partner got for me shortly after a devastating breakup that we'd had, and we'd lost another dog. And I could just go on and on about the pain of these dogs and these stories, but that my dog Shata lived a long and happy life, but we had to take him in to the vet to have him put down. I don't know what the right word for it is. I hate this experience. It's like the worst thing to deal with. But it's the most humane thing in a lot of times, and we believe in humanity, and we believe in dignity and quality of life. So we helped our dog, and it was incredibly tragic. I had this other dog. His name was Sequoia. I'm a tree person. Sequoia is kind of my tree, the coast one, the coast redwood. You know, not the giant one, the coast one. That's my favorite one. It's my favorite tree, the sempervirens. We call it Sequoia sempervirens. Well, my pup, his name was Sequoia, and I loved him really a lot, but he was sick. He'd gotten like his kidneys were failing when he was just like a puppy. He was like 2 years old. He'd gotten this Lyme's vaccine, and shortly after he like went into a disease hit him, and he got violent. I'd never had a violent dog in my life. I'm a dog person. I grew up around dogs always. So Sequoia was breaking my heart because I didn't know what to do. I loved this dog like so much. He was my homie. Me and Sequoia, we did a lot of things together during the pandemic or after, and when things were weird. Like, he was my homie. And we went through this loss of this family. We went through the loss of this dog. And then Sequoia's kidneys started to fail. So we had to take him in, and we had to do the same thing. And he was young, and his body was failing him, and it was a devastating thing to experience. So if you're with me through this conversation, I want to bring it up from here, because I don't want to leave you in the pits. You know, this was kind of my rock bottom, I would say, for sure. I mean, I was like wallowing in the deepest levels of pain that I was vocalizing in ways that were really painful. And I was incredibly, incredibly wounded and broken. So what I realized is that first and foremost, I needed to stop drinking. So I stopped drinking, and that's a hard thing to do. Alcohol's a tough thing to break. It's a very powerful, powerful substance. With the help of cannabis, I was able to break through that relatively comfortably. I had to cut off all my friends. I had to just stop everything, and I did. I did it basically cold turkey. And I was making tinctures and different things to try to get my consciousness in check so that I could live this new existence without that dependency on alcohol to kind of like carry me through this cycle of the day of essentially very harmful, risky behaviors of, you know, my own type of risk. I'm a sensitive person. I'm kind and I'm good. So what that means is I'm just chilling every day, going to happy hour, doing my dirt daily, right? With that whole thing of like growing medicine and all that comes along with it. But I continued trying to do that, and that was the next stage in my path. This was kind of like the 2-layer path of unveiling things that weren't serving me well. So this business stuff, I just, you know, I'm sensitive about it because a lot of people have gotten in a lot of trouble over this, and like it's got a whole side of it that just is not okay. It's not okay. Prohibition has done a number on us, and it's really, really harmed our relationship with medicine and a lot of things, and it just goes so deep. I'm not going to have time or energy to go into it. So I'll just say that what had happened to me is I got in over my ears, and I was drowning in it. And I realized I had a wake-up call from my grandmother, and I'm going to light this candle for her right now. Because you see, my grandmother, Nana, I called her, she's a really special and loving grandmother. And I pray to her often because she has indigenous wisdom. And she was the most incredible healer. and she made the best cookies. And she smoked cigs, she did smoke breaks. And I remember when I was a teenager, I went to her trailer with my mom, and it was just her there. My grandpa wasn't there. And I turned on some MTV, because back in the day there was MTV music videos. And at that time, the song Ain't Nothing But a G Thing had just hit the radio and the video. And so I'm a big fan of hip-hop music, and that particular song, Ain't Nothing But a G Thing, like, my name's Gabriel, I'm the G. So I was like, I love this song and I love this music. And I think because my grandmother and grandmother were very much abolitionists, I would say, from a very deep part into their worldview, is that there had been trickles of racism that had touched our family, and my grandmother and grandfather took a strong line against that. So I think because my grandmother understood that hip-hop music was coming out of the African American community, that she wanted to have respect for my taste in music and this video. And I remember in the video, Snoop had on a necklace with a cannabis leaf on it. And I think I was feeling like a little bit mischievous, like I was just curious to hear like maybe what my grandmother and mother would say or think about all this. So I remember asking, I think I asked my mom, like, Mom, why are they blurring this out? Because they actually blurred out the leaf on the music video, like as censorship. And I was like, Mom, why would they blur that out? It's just a plant, right? It's just a leaf. And my mom and my grandma kind of looked at each other, and they sort of like had this agreement that essentially my question was good. And they had said to me, like, I don't understand why they're blurring out a leaf. So that was their answer in that moment. And every once in a while, some moments come along and you pay attention to what's said. From leadership, especially the women in my life, my mother and my grandmother, especially when it comes to plants and censorship, prohibition and music, is that they told me the right thing in that moment. And it led me down my path, which is to be a medicine keeper, to keep my path pure of any type of like illicit markets, because that's not a good thing for our people. And it's caused a lot of discord and conflict in our communities. So I do hope that there'll be a safe way for all people to get out of this. But when I broke free from all of that identity, because that was my ego right there. Like I mentioned something about ego. My ego was wrapped up in alcohol, this whole cannabis industry. These things were like, I don't like to throw the baby out with the bathwater. So I had these awesome experiences, there's no doubt. And I don't look back on this and judge myself, not one bit. I think I was perfect, the perfect innocent child, just doing wrong right every day, my best job, trying to do my best job. But when my grandmother told me in this moment of a mental break, when I'd had enough, I mean, 30 plus years, I'm talking about a long time invested in this world, into my ego and this identity that wasn't serving me well, that was hurting me and taking me off my path. My grandmother spoke to me, like really heard her voice strongly, and she said, Gabriel, you do understand that you don't have to do any of this, right? And I mean, it was like my head cracked open, and the wonders of my imagination spilled out, understanding that I had kind of like somehow believed that there was no way out of this stuff for me. And all I needed to do was just stop. So this happened like well over a year ago now, which isn't that long, but it's some time. I stopped drinking at least like 2-3 years ago now. So I'm coming into like a whole new stage of creative development, spiritual development, and my development of my relationship with the natural world. So that's my story of healing. This is how the different traumas and things have unfolded for me. And what I've studied in getting out of this is that I believe in a world without these things. I believe that this is a perspective that we're sort of been caged to. So like that belief that I was able to just understand was a simple belief, that my imagination and my world and everything was so free, and that I think I was in this survival mode all the time. Like my grandmother and her mother operated out of the Great Depression on a mentality of scarcity. So that was taught to me, to be kind of worried about, like, where am I going to gather where am I going to gather all my harvest? Where am I going to store everything away? Like a little worried squirrel. There's a great story about the squirrel who had this hard winter, and it just never really got over it. It just is always like storing so many caches of nuts everywhere that it forgets where they are. The good thing about that is that the squirrels are planting trees, right? And that's what my story's about, is planting trees. So I still plant trees, and that's a slang term that we use for trees, but what I'm talking about is real trees, like forest ecology, habitat restoration, growing my own food. I've just become aware that I am knowledgeable, wise, and capable of living a pure lifestyle that makes me feel like I'm in a wheel of bliss, like I'm in the paradise, I'm in Eden. I have everything that I need. I don't need a lot of material things to feel wonderful, because the natural world is where the wonder lies. And that's my story. I'm sticking to it. I hope this turned out okay, and I hope that you learned something. I suppose this was an exercise in me just speaking about a part of my past that I've kept sort of a secret for whatever reason. Because I'm afraid, or I was afraid, or I was doing things that were making me afraid, and I have let all that go to become a very holistic caricature of what I envision myself being, which is a pure human being, just absolutely made of love and compassion. So I shed all the crimes against me, or like the little dirt that I did of doing wrong, right? Like all of this stuff is just water under the bridge now. And it's made me into like the vessel and the person that I am today. I carry the way I talk, I communicate, my style. Like I rock the look of basically like the stoner, skater, artist that I've always been. And that is who I am. So this isn't just me being immature or something. And what I've realized about my maturity is that I was super delayed in my development because of alcoholism. It's a very powerful thing that delays development. And then just this whole mindset of like running from authority all the time. Dude, I'm so done with that. There is no authority that rules over me. If I do something to harm someone else, I would expect to have some sort of consequences. And if that means some authority's like going to give me consequences, then so be it. Like, but what I'm talking about right now is that I just am an abolitionist. So I kind of throw out the whole, dysfunction of our criminal justice system within my imagination, my belief system. And I believe in protecting all people. I believe that all people are good. I believe we all want peace. I believe we all deserve access to medicine, food, shelter, and community, a community that's safe and loving. So that's what I'm working on building here. It's a positive effort. And thanks for riding with me through this memory lane of some of the early traumas that I'd experienced, and just some of my life work. I could go into all these I'm not trying to play the victim at all. I don't consider my story to be unique, and that's why I feel comfortable sharing it, because I think people will understand what's happened with me, and perhaps some of the audience have had similar types of stories. And I would absolutely implore people to feel safe telling me anything, because I would never judge you. And I believe that all people deserve to live in peace and harmony in their existence with the natural world. So we all have different ways of going about that, and I respect yours. And this is just my way of telling you that I'm feeling very well right now, because I'm making decisions based on my wellness, and I've gotten on my path. And once that path opened up to me, creative energy started to unfold to me in a new way. And I've gone through different moments of having to stand up for myself in new ways, having to address different parts of my behaviors and my past training that's caused my consciousness sometimes to drift into areas that are not healthy for me. And I'm really learning about the true power and nature of mind and our interconnectedness, our relationship together. So I do believe that all of my work is your work, and we're sharing in this experience. The fact that you're even watching this right now means that You care about me, and I care about you. And this is a mutual exchange. I'm trying really hard to make eye contact because I can't see your eyes, but I know where you are. And you know where I am. I'm right here, and I'm in love. I'm in love with myself, with the world, with the universe, and the people in it. And I try to stay on track with that because it's easy to get carried away with being right or wrong. And I live right, so there is no battle. I just stay on my path. Stay on yours, find yours, be about it. It'll bring you such bliss. And I truly wish that if you're not in this space and somehow you're watching this and this is maybe helping you to sort of understand how somebody else's experience has navigated them through seas of suffering and generational traumas and childhood traumas, and navigated through that in a way that's accessible, because this is doable. And I think that we're just going up from here. Like, I'm focused on art, ecology, and spirituality, growing my own food, saying my prayers, remembering the divine, blessed, feminine heart, and remembering my rematriation, because my spiritual beliefs are my own. And I really love telling stories about the spiritual world and spiritual evolution, cultural evolution, biological evolution. We're all farmers, we're all artists, we're all human beings, and we all deserve to love one another and experience love, acceptance. Our longing should be a part of our belonging. So let's bring this home. Let's bring this home together. Let's let go of the things that didn't serve us well. And let's create an economy of abundance so that kids don't feel like they need to do dirt daily to just like make a living out here as an artist. We can do better together. We need support. Artists need support. Thank you for yours. I support you. One love. Peace.